Have you ever met a child so quiet, so polite, that something just felt wrong? Not because of what they did, but because of what they didn't do, like laugh, cry, or even blink too much. This is the story of Timothy Caldwell, an 8-year-old boy who arrived at a lonely farm in Sedalia, Missouri, and within months, 3 people were dead. Some say he was just unlucky. Others believe he was cursed. But one doctor wrote that Timothy Caldwell may be the most disturbing child the Midwest has ever known. Subscribe now if you love chilling historical mysteries. And let us know in the comments, have you ever met someone who felt off the first time you saw them? Studio microphone part 1. The smile that didn't reach his eyes. In the summer of 1867, Timothy Caldwell became the center of the strangest case ever recorded in Missouri. He was only 8 years old, but in 6 months, 3 people died, and dozens of animals turned up dead. And each time, Timothy was somehow nearby. Dr. Samuel Harding, the only doctor in the area, began keeping journals about the boy. He would later call Timothy a child who broke every rule of human nature. Let's go back to the beginning. Heartbreak, a farm of loss. Missouri was still healing from the Civil War. Many families had lost fathers, sons, and brothers. The Caldwell farm, 15 miles outside Sedalia, used to be full of life. But James Caldwell died in battle. His wife Martha died later from sickness. Their older son Thomas inherited the farm, but not the strength or money to run it. Then Thomas got a letter. His brother William had died in a prison camp. William's wife had passed too. That left one person, 8-year-old Timothy Caldwell. Thomas took him in, not out of love, but because he needed help on the farm. Thomas was hard. His wife Sarah was cold. They had no children of their own and weren't exactly excited to raise someone else's. Timothy arrived in spring, holding a small cloth bag and wearing a serious face. His pale blue eyes looked too old for his age. Handshake first impressions. Timothy was quiet. He never talked about his past, only saying that his father was a soldier and his mother coughed up blood before she died. He had lived with neighbors for a while. He was polite, always saying, "Yes, sir," and "Yes, ma'am." He never cried, never complained, and never needed to be told something twice. Dr. Harding met Timothy that June when the boy came to town with his uncle. Harding had treated soldiers from both sides during the war and thought he could read people well. But Timothy made him uneasy. He was polite, clean, respectful, Harding wrote later. But there was something in his eyes, like he was studying me. Rooster, the neighbor's warning. The Caldwell farm was far from town, but not far enough to escape notice. Eleanor Patterson, their closest neighbor, saw Timothy working day and night. He never stopped to play. He never even looked tired. "It's like watching a little machine," she told her husband. Her chickens acted strange whenever Timothy got near the fence. They'd get nervous, run from the edge, and make loud noises. Eleanor didn't know why, but she didn't like it. Skull and Crossbones Death Number 1. Mary Fletcher. The first death came in August 1866. 5-year-old Mary Fletcher, the blacksmith's daughter, went missing near a small creek that ran through several farms, including the Caldwells. That evening, Timothy showed up at the Fletcher home. His clothes were wet. He looked pale. "Mrs. Fletcher," he said calmly, "I found Mary by the creek. She's not breathing." A search party rushed out and found Mary face down in shallow water. Dr. Harding said she drowned, an accident. But something felt off. Timothy described where he found her, in exact detail. He knew how her dress was caught on a branch and even what color the water was near her face. He said he was looking for a lost calf. Thomas Caldwell confirmed a calf had gone missing that morning. It was found 2 days later in a meadow far from the creek. At Mary's funeral, Timothy sat quietly beside his aunt and uncle. He showed no emotion, but said all the right words. "I wish I'd found her sooner," he told Mary's father. But Eleanor Patterson noticed something. While the room cried, Timothy didn't. His head was bowed, but his eyes were dry, and watching everything. Skull and Crossbones Death Number 2 Henrik Larsson. 3 weeks later, an old man named Henrik Larsson was found dead at the base of Devil's Bluff. He had climbed it for years to check on wild beehives. That day, Timothy found him. "I saw his hat stuck in a thorn bush," the boy said. "I called for him. No answer. So I climbed down. Henrik's neck was broken. Dr. Harding saw many dead bees around the body, more than expected." Timothy suggested the bees had attacked him. Maybe they got angry. He always said they hated being disturbed. Harding went to the top of the bluff to check the hives. They were fine. No signs of attack. The bees were calm. It didn't add up. If the bees had stung Henrik, it would have happened at the top, not the bottom. Skull and Crossbones Death Number 3 Jacob Mills. In September, 6-year-old Jacob Mills vanished while playing near the woods. Timothy joined the search. He searched for 3 days straight, never tiring. On the 4th day, just after sunrise, he told Jacob's father, "I think I found something." Jacob was at the bottom of an abandoned well. Alive, but barely. He died hours later from the cold and thirst. Harding noticed something strange. Timothy sat in a corner of the cabin, staring at the dying boy, not crying, not praying. Just watching. When Jacob died, Harding wrote, Timothy looked satisfied. Magnifying glass. One final clue. After the funeral drive, Harding visited the well. It had been covered by logs and brush, too well hidden to find by chance. But someone had carefully arranged the debris, like they wanted it hidden. Harding now believed Jacob didn't fall. He was placed there, and only one person knew exactly where to find him. Bell. End of Part 1. Subscribe now to hear what Drive Harding discovers next in Part 2, because what he finds in Timothy's drawings will make you question everything you thought you knew about innocence. Would you like me to continue with Part 2? What would you do if an 8-year-old child calmly described how long a rabbit screams before it dies? What if he asked how much blood a man loses before he goes silent? Dr. Samuel Harding was just a town doctor, until he discovered a hidden cave filled with broken bones, twisted drawings, and secrets too dark for any courtroom. This is Part 2 of the chilling true tale of Timothy Caldwell, a boy who smiled as people died. If you haven't seen Part 1, pause now and go back. And if you love true horror based on American history, subscribe and tap the bell, because it only gets darker from here. Studio Microphone Part 2, The Cave of Bones. By October 1866, Drive. Samuel Harding wasn't just treating coughs and fevers anymore. He was investigating a mystery, one that wore the face of an 8-year-old boy. Using his role as town doctor, Harding began visiting nearby farms, asking quiet questions. What he found painted a terrifying picture. Animals were dying, but not from illness. No, they were dying in strange, unnatural ways. Rooster too clean to be foxes. Mrs. Eleanor Patterson told him her chickens had been dying, 1 or 2 every few days. 17 gone, she said. Necks broken clean. My husband blames foxes, but I've seen no paw prints. And the way they're killed, it's too neat. Too human. Harding examined the dead birds. She was right. The breaks were precise, like someone knew exactly where to twist. This wasn't nature. It was practice. Other farmers had similar stories. James Wickham lost 3 calves, found strangled or caught in fences in ways that didn't make sense. Robert Dunham's prized bull had broken its leg in a shallow ditch. He was the surest-footed animal I had, Robert said. It don't make sense. Each of these farms was close to the Caldwell property. And in almost every case, someone had seen Timothy nearby. I saw him that morning, James said. Just walking along the fence like always. He waved, real polite. Brain the curious observer. Back at the Caldwell farm, Drive. Harding made regular visits to treat Timothy's uncle, Thomas. Every time, Timothy was there, watching, listening, always quiet. But he asked questions. Too many questions. How do you know if someone's really dead? He once asked. Sometimes they just look like they're sleeping, right? Harding gave the boy a cautious answer. But Timothy pressed on. How long does it take to die from a cut? What if it's in the stomach? Or the throat? The questions weren't childish. They were methodical, cold. Harding began testing the boy, saying false things to see how Timothy responded. But Timothy never corrected him. He just stored the knowledge away like a sponge. Watching, learning, military helmet soldier stories and chilling questions. One day, Harding shared a story about a soldier whose arm had to be amputated. Did he scream? Timothy asked, his pale blue eyes locked on the doctor's face. Or was he too hurt to make noise? Harding didn't answer. He couldn't. A chill passed through him like winter wind. This was not a curious boy. This was something else. By November, Harding had filled 2 journals with notes on Timothy Caldwell. The boy showed no signs of guilt, grief, or empathy, but had an adult's understanding of pain and death. Harding believed Timothy wasn't just dangerous. He was evolving. Bet a lucky injury. That same month, Thomas Caldwell injured his back during the fall harvest. He needed daily rest, and daily visits from Dr. Harding. This gave Harding something precious: time. Time to talk to Timothy. Time to watch him. Time to dig deeper. And then Timothy slipped up. He mentioned a place he went to think. A cave. Harding asked where it was. Timothy shrugged. Just a quiet place I like. That night, Harding went to find it. Hole the cave. What he discovered inside made his stomach turn. The cave was small, hidden beneath rocks and brush. Inside, it smelled of old death and dry earth. Animal bones were stacked neatly in the corners. Birds, rabbits, squirrels, even a dog's skull. There were tools, crude knives and metal pieces sharpened into points. And drawings. Dozens of them. Harding knelt beside the papers, his lantern trembling. The drawings were detailed, too detailed for a child. They showed animals in pain, sliced open, wounded, dying. Each had handwritten notes. Greater than, subject remained conscious after eye removal 10 minutes. Vocalized less when pressure applied to throat. Spasms lasted longer in birds than in rabbits. This wasn't imagination. This was research. Person standing human experiments. But then he found something worse. Newer drawings showed people. A girl in a white dress, Mary Fletcher. An old man near rocks, Henrik Larsson. A boy curled in a circle, Jacob Mills. Each picture was labeled with guesses about blood loss, body response, and how long each took to die. Harding knew now, Timothy didn't just watch these deaths. He planned them. He executed them. And he took notes. Brain a monster in child's skin. But what could Harding do? It was 1866. No court would believe a child could do such things. And Harding had broken into the cave. Legally, he had no case. Psychology didn't even have a name for what Timothy was. Back then, people believed children were born pure, bad only if they were abused. No one thought a child could be born evil. Harding knew he had one chance. Talk to Timothy. Alone. Rice planned a walk to the pasture. Next morning, he returned to the farm with a plan. He gave Thomas and Sarah laudanum to help with pain, really to keep them asleep. Then he asked Timothy to walk with him to the pasture. The boy agreed. They walked silently through frost-kissed grass. Then Harding turned to him. I found the cave, he said. Timothy didn't flinch. He didn't lie. He just listened. When Harding finished, the boy said, "You're not going to tell anyone." Why not? Timothy smiled. Not his usual polite smile. A real one. Cold and full of power. Because no one will believe you, he said. And because you want to know what I'll do next. He was right. Harding was horrified. But deep down, he was curious. What was Timothy planning? What are you going to do? He asked. Timothy thought for a moment. Then answered softly, I want to see what happens when you hurt someone who trusts you completely. Harding's blood ran cold. He meant his aunt and uncle. Bell. End of part 2. Next up. In part 3, Sheriff Crawford gets involved. But Timothy is always one step ahead. What happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? Speech balloon, tell us in the comments. Do you believe evil can be born in a child? Thumbs up, like, floppy disk save, and bell subscribe so you don't miss part 3 of Timothy Caldwell. Let me know when you're ready for part 3, and I'll continue the series. Good morning, Drive, Harding, Timothy said, his voice polite as always, but there was something different in his tone. A kind of excitement, like he had been waiting for this exact moment. I've been waiting for you, he added. The words sent a chill through Drive. Harding. The way Timothy said it made it seem like this meeting was expected, even planned. Inside the house, Drive. Harding found Thomas and Sarah Caldwell in their bedroom. At first, they appeared to be sleeping peacefully. But when he stepped closer, he noticed something was wrong. Thomas's breathing was shallow, and his skin looked pale and gray. Sarah looked the same. What did you give them? Doctor, Harding asked quietly, not turning around. He knew Timothy was behind him, watching closely. Just some herbs I found in the woods, Timothy replied, sounding innocent. There are so many interesting plants around here. Some of them are very useful. Doctor, Harding checked their pulses. Both were weak but steady. Whatever Timothy had given them, it hadn't killed them. It had only made them sleep deeply. They're not going to wake up for several hours, Timothy said. That gives us plenty of time to talk. What followed was the strangest conversation Drive Harding had ever experienced. Timothy talked about murder and torture like a doctor might talk about a medical case. Calm, clinical, cold. Mary Fletcher taught me that drowning is actually quite slow, Timothy said, sitting down as if beginning a pleasant chat. People think it's peaceful. It's not. There's panic, struggling. It took almost 3 minutes. Doctor, Harding felt sick. You held her under the water. Timothy nodded. She was playing by the creek. I told her I found a pretty stone. When she bent over to look, I pushed her head down. She fought hard, but she was small. I learned something important from that. People really want to live. And Henrik Larsson, that was harder, Timothy admitted. I couldn't fight him, so I used bees. He always checked his hives on Thursday. The night before, I loosened some rocks by the cliff. Then I put bees in a bag. When he came, I threw the bees at him and yelled about a swarm. He panicked and fell, just like I planned. Doctor, Harding couldn't believe what he was hearing. And Jacob Mills, Timothy's tone changed. He was different. I wanted to see what happens when someone dies slowly. I told him I found baby raccoons. He followed me into the woods, and I led him to an old well. He climbed in, and I covered the top. I gave him a little water each day. Just enough to keep him alive. 4 days. Doctor, Harding's horror grew. These weren't just stories. They were confessions. What do you plan to do with your aunt and uncle? He asked. Timothy smiled. That's where you come in, Doctor. Harding, all my other tests were on people who didn't know what was happening. But you understand what I am. That makes you perfect for a new kind of experiment. As he spoke, Timothy started gathering objects. A rope from the barn. A heavy candlestick. Several sharp knives. He laid them out carefully, like a surgeon preparing for an operation. I want to see what happens when someone who knows they're going to die tries to save others. Will you sacrifice yourself? Will you fight me? Or will you run? Doctor, Harding reached into his bag and pulled out a pistol. He pointed it at Timothy. Step away from the knives. Timothy looked at the gun with interest. That's a Navy Colt, right? 6 bullets, and you're protecting 6 people. Yourself, Thomas, Sarah, and the 3 officers outside. That means even if you shoot me, you'll have nothing left. He took a step closer. You want to know if I was born this way or made this way? If others like me exist. You're curious. That's your weakness. Timothy moved toward his uncle's bed, holding the rope. Doctor, Harding lunged to stop him. Timothy slashed at him with a knife, cutting his arm. They struggled. Timothy was fast and skilled, but Drive Harding was stronger. He twisted the knife from the boy's hand. But Timothy pulled another blade. The fight was fierce. The noise brought Sheriff Crawford and his deputies rushing in. Deputy Mitchell grabbed Timothy and pulled him away. Thomas and Sarah lay unconscious, unaware of the danger they had been in. Timothy sat in the corner, his face bruised, his clothes torn, but his eyes still cold and calm. You can't prove anything, he said. No one will believe a child did all that. Sheriff Crawford shook his head. We don't need to prove it all. Trying to kill your family is enough. Timothy smiled. You won't hang me. I'm too young, too interesting. Someone will want to study me. And he was right, partly. When the sheriff presented the evidence to the court, many officials refused to believe it. The cave drawings, the patterns of deaths, they blamed it on trauma from Timothy's past. But the attempted murder of his aunt and uncle couldn't be denied. 3 officers had seen it. In 1867, there were no laws for handling children like Timothy. He was too young for prison, too dangerous for an orphanage. Finally, a decision was made. Timothy would be sent to the Missouri State Hospital for the insane. Doctors would study him, try to understand him, try to treat him. Dr. Harding went with him. For 3 months, he watched Timothy carefully. The boy acted sorry. He cried during therapy. He thanked the nurses. But Harding saw through it. Timothy wasn't feeling anything. He was learning, watching, mimicking. In his reports, Harding wrote, the subject simulates human emotions with great skill but feels none. He understands happiness as something people pretend when they want things. He understands sadness as a tool to get help. But he has never truly felt either. Timothy began talking about new experiments. More violent, more precise. He dreamed of testing how people react to pain, fear, and death. The hospital kept him under close watch. But even then, strange things started happening. 3 older patients died suddenly after talking with Timothy. 2 younger patients fell and were badly hurt. Both had been near Timothy. Some said he stood by their beds at night, just watching. Nurses had nightmares. Attendants asked to be moved to other wards. Then, Fitzgerald found Timothy's journal. It looked like a simple diary, full of thoughts and regrets. But she knew how to look for codes. She decoded the entries. What she found shocked everyone. Day 47. F believes my tears were real. Estimate 3 more weeks to gain her trust for physical contact. Timothy was pretending. He was gathering information, preparing. Security tightened. Visits were limited. But Timothy adjusted. Then, in summer 1868, Timothy disappeared. The hospital said he escaped during a transfer. Dr. Harding didn't believe it. He knew Timothy had planned every step. Afterward, strange deaths started showing up across the Midwest. Accidents that looked staged. Dead animals tortured in specific ways. Reports of helpful, mature children in towns just before bad things happened. Dr. Harding spent the rest of his life tracking these stories. He believed Timothy was still out there. In his final journal, written before he died in 1891, Harding wrote, Timothy was not a monster. He was a window into what humans can become without empathy. He may still be out there, smarter and more dangerous than ever. So what do you think? Was Timothy Caldwell truly evil? Or was he just a product of tragedy and genius combined? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if it gave you chills. Subscribe for more dark and chilling stories. And remember, sometimes the scariest monsters don't hide in the dark, they smile in the daylight. Timothy Caldwell, Part 4. It was a cold December morning in Westvale. The sky was gray, and the ground was hard with frost. Dr. Harding sat in his study, staring at Timothy's file. His mind kept going back to the boys' final words during their last session. Timothy had hinted at hurting someone who trusted him. Someone close. Someone who would never suspect him. Dr. Harding picked up his coat and left for the sheriff's office. Sheriff Nolan, a tall man with a thick mustache, greeted him with a nod. Mornin', Doctor. What brings you here so early? Dr. Harding sat down across from him. It's about Timothy Caldwell. I'm worried he might do something terrible. Sheriff Nolan raised an eyebrow. He's just a boy. What makes you think that? He's clever, manipulative. He knows how to hide his feelings. He told me he wants to know what happens when you hurt someone who trusts you completely. Sheriff Nolan leaned back in his chair. That's mighty unsettling. Who do you think he's talking about? His aunt and uncle. They took him in after his parents died. But he speaks about them with coldness. No warmth at all. The sheriff scratched his head. We can't arrest a boy on a hunch, doctor. But I'll keep an eye on him. That same day, Timothy sat at the dining table with his Aunt Mary and Uncle Joseph. The fire crackled in the fireplace. Mary placed a warm pie on the table. "You've been quiet today, Timothy. Everything all right?" she asked. Timothy smiled softly. "Just thinking." Joseph nodded. "You're a thoughtful young man. That's a good thing." Timothy looked at them both, eyes calm but distant. "Do you believe people always show their true selves?" Mary laughed gently. "I think with time, everyone reveals who they are." "Why do you ask?" Timothy shrugged. "Just curious." Later that night, he crept into the attic. He pulled out the wooden box again. Inside were the same things: his father's hunting knife, old letters, and a photograph of his parents. But now, there was something new, an envelope addressed to Dr. Harding. He opened it and read the letter again. It was a confession, one he had written but never delivered. "Dr. Harding, I know something is wrong with me. I don't feel things the way others do. I've watched people cry, scream, laugh. I can copy those feelings, but I don't really feel them. I try to care, but it's like watching a play. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if I stopped pretending." Timothy folded the letter and placed it back in the box. The next morning, Sheriff Nolan knocked on the door. Aunt Mary answered, surprised. "Good morning, Sheriff. Everything all right? Just a quick word with Timothy, if that's okay." Timothy stepped forward. "Yes, sir." The sheriff smiled kindly. "Just checking in. Heard you've been quiet lately." "I've been thinking about life, death, purpose." The sheriff blinked. "Well, that's heavy talk for someone your age." Timothy tilted his head. "Is it?" Sheriff Nolan forced a smile. "You're a smart boy, Timothy. Stay out of trouble." After he left, Mary turned to Timothy. "Did something happen at school or with Dr. Harding?" "No," he replied. "But thank you for asking. It means a lot." That night, Timothy stood in the hallway, listening. Mary was humming in the kitchen. Joseph was in his study, reading. Timothy took a deep breath and returned to his room. He stared at the ceiling. He whispered, "Soon." Meanwhile, Harding sat in bed, unable to sleep. His thoughts kept circling. He decided he couldn't wait any longer. He would go to the Caldwells' home in the morning and speak to them himself. But he might be too late. Timothy had made up his mind. Timothy Caldwell, Part 5. It was still dark when Dr. Harding stepped out into the cold. Frost clung to the windows of his carriage, and his breath hung in the air like smoke. He tapped the horse gently and rode toward the Caldwell home, heart pounding. Meanwhile, inside the Caldwell house, everything was still. Timothy stood in the kitchen. He wore a thick coat and held something in his hand, a small glass bottle. It was filled with a clear liquid. Poison. He had stolen it from the barn a week ago. The same kind used to kill rats. He had thought about this for days. He had rehearsed the plan in his head. But now that the moment was here, something felt different. He heard footsteps behind him. It was Aunt Mary. "Timothy, what are you doing up so early, sweetheart?" He turned around slowly, hiding the bottle behind his back. "I couldn't sleep. I thought I'd help start the fire." She smiled warmly. "That's very kind of you. You're such a good boy." Timothy forced a smile. Her kindness struck him like a cold wind. He felt a strange tightening in his chest. "Go back to bed, dear," Mary said. "I'll take care of things." He nodded and walked back toward his room. But instead of entering, he stood in the hallway, frozen. "Why am I hesitating?" he thought. This was the plan. Outside, the sound of hooves broke the silence. Dr. Harding's carriage came into view. Mary opened the front door just as he approached. "Doctor, what a surprise. Is everything all right?" Dr. Harding stepped inside, brushing frost off his coat. "I needed to speak with you. It's urgent." "Where's Timothy?" "He's upstairs." "Is he in trouble?" "No," said Dr. Harding quickly. "Not yet, but I fear he might be." Mary's smile faded. She led him into the sitting room. Joseph joined them moments later, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Dr. Harding spoke quietly but firmly. "I've been treating Timothy for months now. He's smart, very smart. But he doesn't feel things the way most people do." Joseph frowned. "What Are you saying, Doctor? I believe he may be planning something harmful. To you, to Mary, maybe both. There was a heavy silence. Upstairs, Timothy leaned over the banister. He had heard every word. Mary looked pale, but he's just a boy. He's never been anything but polite and gentle. Doctor, Harding shook his head. He mimics emotions well, but underneath, there's a storm I don't think he can control. I'm not asking you to punish him. I just want you to be cautious. Watch for signs. Joseph stood up. We'll keep him close. We won't leave him alone. Timothy walked back to his room. He placed the bottle back inside a drawer and sat on his bed, staring at his hands. He felt exposed, like someone had peeled away his mask. That night, the atmosphere in the house changed. Mary and Joseph tried to act normal, but Timothy saw it, the way they looked at him a little longer, the way they kept the doors open, how they stayed in the same room with him. He wasn't angry. He was curious. For the first time, they were seeing him. He wrote another letter that night. Dr. Harding, I heard what you said. I don't blame you. I think part of me wanted to be caught. But don't mistake hesitation for change. The curiosity hasn't gone away. I just want to know what it feels like. To break something fragile. To watch it fall and know I did it. He sealed the letter and placed it under his pillow. In the morning, he handed it to Dr. Harding without a word. Dr. Harding opened it after he left the house. As he read it, a chill went down his spine. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Timothy Caldwell, Part 6. Winter deepened in Missouri. Snow covered the fields, and the days grew short and silent. Inside the Caldwell home, things were calm on the surface, but something cold lingered in the air. Dr. Harding visited more often now. He said it was for checkups, but everyone knew the truth. He was watching Timothy, quietly, closely. Timothy knew it too, and he didn't mind. In fact, he welcomed it. He liked the attention, not the kind children get for good grades, but the kind detectives give to criminals. Like a puzzle to solve. Like a threat to stop. Mary tried to fill the house with warmth, cooking pies, singing hymns, lighting candles. But the flickers of joy could not erase the shadows growing in Timothy's mind. One evening, Mary caught Timothy staring at her from the hallway. She smiled. Would you like to help me with supper? He didn't answer right away. Then slowly, he stepped forward. Sure. They worked side by side in the kitchen. Mary peeled potatoes. Timothy sliced carrots. The air smelled of rosemary and roasted meat. Your uncle says you've been reading a lot, she said. Yes, Timothy replied. I like books about people who do strange things. Mary paused. Strange how? They lie. They steal. They hurt others. But they always have a reason. I like figuring out what it is. Mary gave a soft nod. Understanding someone doesn't mean you have to become them. Timothy tilted his head. But if you do become them, at least you understand why. Mary said nothing more. But that night, she locked her bedroom door. The next morning, something strange happened. Joseph's hunting rifle was missing. He searched the barn, the cellar, even behind the woodpile. Nothing. Did you take it out? He asked Mary. No. Did you? Absolutely not. They both looked at Timothy, who sat calmly by the fire reading. Timothy, have you seen the rifle? Joseph asked. Timothy looked up. No, sir. His voice was flat, empty. That evening, drive, Harding returned. Joseph pulled him aside. The rifle is gone. We think Timothy may have it. Harding's face turned pale. You need to search the house. Tonight. Every room. So they did. Every drawer. Every closet. The attic. The barn. Nothing. Mary cried that night. Not because of fear, but because the boys she once called family now made her feel like a stranger in her own home. Dr. Harding stayed late. He watched Timothy from across the room. The boy sat still, eyes fixed on the flames in the fireplace. Finally, drive, Harding spoke. Timothy, do you believe people are born good or bad? Timothy didn't look at him. I think some people are born curious. And curiosity doesn't care about good or bad. And where does that curiosity lead you? Timothy finally looked up. I guess we'll both find out. That night, drive, Harding wrote a letter to a colleague in St. Louis. I fear this boy is not just disturbed, he's dangerous. His mind works in ways I can't predict. His thoughts go to dark places. And worst of all, I believe he enjoys the fear he creates. Meanwhile, Timothy stood at his window, looking at the snowy fields. In his hand, he held the missing rifle. He hadn't used it, not yet, but the idea was growing. And soon, he would decide what to do with it. Part 7. The Silence in the Cellar. Dr. Harding returned to the Caldwell house 2 days after Timothy's last visit. The boy hadn't shown up to their scheduled session, and that worried him. The doctor parked his buggy near the same iron gate and stepped out into the cool, gray afternoon. The house was quiet, too quiet. Harding knocked on the door. No answer. He pushed gently. It creaked open. Inside, the air was thick with stillness and an earthy, moldy scent, like something had been shut away for too long. Timothy, he called, stepping into the foyer. Nothing. He made his way through the parlor, then the kitchen. Everything was untouched, as if no one had lived there for days. Then he heard it, a slow, rhythmic thumping sound coming from below. Harding followed the sound to a narrow door near the pantry, one he hadn't noticed before. It led down into the cellar. He paused. Every instinct told him to turn back. But Timothy might be down there. He opened the door and descended the stairs. The cellar was damp and smelled of iron. In the far corner, a figure crouched beside an old trunk. It was Timothy. He was barefoot, his clothes torn and dusty. His eyes looked up slowly, unfocused at first. Then he blinked. "Dr. Harding," he whispered. "You shouldn't be here. I was worried about you. What are you doing down here?" Timothy didn't respond. Instead, he placed his hand on the trunk. "I found something. Letters. Journals. From my uncle. He wrote about me. About what he thought I was becoming." Harding stepped closer. "And what did he think you were becoming?" Timothy stood slowly, his body trembling. "Not human. Not like them. He thought I was some kind of echo. A curse born in our bloodline." Harding's breath caught. "That's not true. You're a child who's been through trauma. You're not cursed." Timothy looked past him, toward the darkness behind the stairs. "They made me believe I was wrong. For seeing things. For hearing the silence speak." Harding reached out. "Come back upstairs with me. Let's talk in the light." But Timothy didn't move. "There's something else in this house, Doctor. Something that wants to stay hidden. It used me. It used all of us. And I think it's waking up again." Suddenly, a loud bang came from above, the front door slamming shut. Harding flinched. Timothy turned his face toward the noise but didn't seem surprised. "Do you hear it now too?" he asked softly. Harding nodded. "I do." They stood in silence, listening to the breath of the house. The walls felt like they were leaning in. The air pressed down. Timothy whispered, "It lives where no one looks." And then the cellar light flickered and went out. Want to know what happens when the shadows grow bold? Candle like, pen comment, and bell subscribe so you never miss what lies beneath. The truth always surfaces, but not always in daylight. Part 7 has been rewritten in the same atmospheric and suspenseful style as the later parts, especially Part 10. Let me know if you'd like to revise any other part or begin a new horror series. Part 7. The Silence in the Cellar. Dr. Harding returned to the Caldwell house 2 days after Timothy's last visit. The boy hadn't shown up to their scheduled session, and that worried him. The doctor parked his buggy near the same iron gate and stepped out into the cool, gray afternoon. The house was quiet, too quiet. Harding knocked on the door. No answer. He pushed gently. It creaked open. Inside, the air was thick with stillness and an earthy, moldy scent, like something had been shut away for too long. "Timothy," he called, stepping into the foyer. Nothing. He made his way through the parlor, then the kitchen. Everything was untouched, as if no one had lived there for days. Then he heard it, a slow, rhythmic thumping sound coming from below. Harding followed the sound to a narrow door near the pantry, one he hadn't noticed before. It led down into the cellar. He paused. Every instinct told him to turn back. But Timothy might be down there. He opened the door and descended the stairs. The cellar was damp and smelled of iron. In the far corner, a figure crouched beside an old trunk. It was Timothy. He was barefoot, his clothes torn and dusty. His eyes looked up slowly, unfocused at first. Then he blinked. "Dr. Harding," he whispered. "You shouldn't be here. I was worried about you. What are you doing down here?" Timothy didn't respond. Instead, he placed his hand on the trunk. "I found something. Letters. Journals. From my uncle. He wrote about me. About what he thought I was becoming." Harding stepped closer. "And what did he think you were becoming?" Timothy stood slowly, his body trembling. "Not human. Not like them. He thought I was some kind of echo. A curse born in our bloodline." Harding's breath caught. "That's not true. You're a child who's been through trauma. You're not cursed." Timothy looked past him, toward the darkness behind the stairs. "They made me believe I was wrong. For seeing things. For hearing the silence speak." Harding reached out. "Come back upstairs with me. Let's talk in the light." But Timothy didn't move. "There's something else in this house, Doctor. Something that wants to stay hidden. It used me. It used all of us. And I think it's waking up again." Suddenly, a loud bang came from above, the front door slamming shut. Harding flinched. Timothy turned his face toward the noise but didn't seem surprised. "Do you hear it now too?" he asked softly. Harding nodded. "I do." They stood in silence, listening to the breath of the house. The walls felt like they were leaning in. The air pressed down. Timothy whispered, "It lives where no one looks." And then the cellar light flickered and went out. Want to know what happens when the shadows grow bold? Candle like, pen comment, and bell subscribe so you never miss what lies beneath. The truth always surfaces, but not always in daylight. Part 8. The grave behind the house has been added successfully. Let me know when you're ready for Part 9. Part 7. The silence in the cellar. Dr. Harding returned to the Caldwell house 2 days after Timothy's last visit. The boy hadn't shown up to their scheduled session, and that worried him. The doctor parked his buggy near the same iron gate and stepped out into the cool, gray afternoon. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Harding knocked on the door. No answer. He pushed gently. It creaked open. Inside, the air was thick with stillness and an earthy, moldy scent, like something had been shut away for too long. "Timothy," he called, stepping into the foyer. Nothing. He made his way through the parlor, then the kitchen. Everything was untouched, as if no one had lived there for days. Then he heard it, a slow, rhythmic thumping sound coming from below. Harding followed the sound to a narrow door near the pantry, one he hadn't noticed before. It led down into the cellar. He paused. Every instinct told him to turn back. But Timothy might be down there. He opened the door and descended the stairs. The cellar was damp and smelled of iron. In the far corner, a figure crouched beside an old trunk. It was Timothy. He was barefoot, his clothes torn and dusty. His eyes looked up slowly, unfocused at first. Then he blinked. "Dr. Harding," he whispered. "You shouldn't be here. I was worried about you. What are you doing down here?" Timothy didn't respond. Instead, he placed his hand on the trunk. "I found something. Letters. Journals. From my uncle. He wrote about me. About what he thought I was becoming." Harding stepped closer. "And what did he think you were becoming?" Timothy stood slowly, his body trembling. "Not human. Not like them. He thought I was some kind of echo. A curse born in our bloodline." Harding's breath caught. "That's not true. You're a child who's been through trauma. You're not cursed." Timothy looked past him, toward the darkness behind the stairs. "They made me believe I was wrong. For seeing things. For hearing the silence speak." Harding reached out. "Come back upstairs with me. Let's talk in the light." But Timothy didn't move. "There's something else in this house, Doctor. Something that wants to stay hidden. It used me. It used all of us. And I think it's waking up again." Suddenly, a loud bang came from above, the front door slamming shut. Harding flinched. Timothy turned his face toward the noise but didn't seem surprised. "Do you hear it now too?" he asked softly. Harding nodded. "I do." They stood in silence, listening to the breath of the house. The walls felt like they were leaning in. The air pressed down. Timothy whispered, "It lives where no one looks." And then the cellar light flickered and went out. Want to know what happens when the shadows grow bold? Candle like, pin comment, and bell subscribe so you never miss what lies beneath. The truth always surfaces, but not always in daylight. Part 9. The other Caldwell has been added successfully. Let me know when you're ready for Part 10, the final part. Dr. Harding returned to the Caldwell house 2 days after Timothy's last visit. The boy hadn't shown up to their scheduled session, and that worried him. The doctor parked his buggy near the same iron gate and stepped out into the cool, gray afternoon. The house was quiet, too quiet. Harding knocked on the door. No answer. He pushed gently. It creaked open. Inside, the air was thick with stillness and an earthy, moldy scent, like something had been shut away for too long. Timothy, he called, stepping into the foyer. Nothing. He made his way through the parlor, then the kitchen. Everything was untouched, as if no one had lived there for days. Then he heard it, a slow, rhythmic thumping sound coming from below. Harding followed the sound to a narrow door near the pantry, one he hadn't noticed before. It led down into the cellar. He paused. Every instinct told him to turn back. But Timothy might be down there. He opened the door and descended the stairs. The cellar was damp and smelled of iron. In the far corner, a figure crouched beside an old trunk. It was Timothy. He was barefoot, his clothes torn and dusty. His eyes looked up slowly. Unfocused at first. Then he blinked. "Dr. Harding," he whispered. "You shouldn't be here. I was worried about you. What are you doing down here?" Timothy didn't respond. Instead, he placed his hand on the trunk. "I found something. Letters. Journals. From my uncle. He wrote about me. About what he thought I was becoming." Harding stepped closer. "And what did he think you were becoming?" Timothy stood slowly, his body trembling. "Not human. Not like them. He thought I was some kind of echo. A curse born in our bloodline." Harding's breath caught. "That's not true. You're a child who's been through trauma. You're not cursed." Timothy looked past him, toward the darkness behind the stairs. "They made me believe I was wrong. For seeing things. For hearing the silence speak." Harding reached out. "Come back upstairs with me. Let's talk in the light." But Timothy didn't move. "There's something else in this house, Doctor. Something that wants to stay hidden. It used me. It used all of us. And I think it's waking up again." Suddenly, a loud bang came from above, the front door slamming shut. Harding flinched. Timothy turned his face toward the noise but didn't seem surprised. "Do you hear it now too?" he asked softly. Harding nodded. "I do." They stood in silence, listening to the breath of the house. The walls felt like they were leaning in. The air pressed down. Timothy whispered, "It lives where no one looks." And then the cellar light flickered and went out. Want to know what happens when the shadows grow bold? Candle like, pin comment, and bell subscribe so you never miss what lies beneath. The truth always surfaces, but not always in daylight. Part 10. The promise has been added successfully.